Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Rapid City Planning Commission meeting for April 24th, 2025. If any member of the audience wishes to speak to an item on the Planning Commission agenda today, there are speaker request forms on the table along the left wall. Please fill out the request with the agenda number of the item you wish to speak to and hand it to the staff seated on the left of the dais. At this time, we would also like to ask that if any member of the audience has a cell phone or other electronic device, that you either turn it off or turn the ringer to silent. If you need to take a call, please step out to the hallway so the meeting is not disrupted. Items 1 and 2 have been placed on the consent calendar today and may be approved as a group. Action will be taken on all consent items in accordance with staff's recommendation by a single vote. Any item may be removed from the consent calendar by any planning commissioner, staff member, or audience member for separate consideration at this time. The findings of this planning commission are recommendations to the city council. The city council will make the final decision with the exception of the following item. Item 2, 25UR013. The Rapid City Planning Commission action on this item is final unless any party appeals that decision to the Rapid City Council. All appeals must be submitted in writing to the Department of Community Development by close of business on the 7th full calendar day following action by the Planning Commission. Would staff like to remove item 1 or 2 for separate consideration?
No, thank you.
Would any planning commissioner like to remove 1 or 2 for separate consideration? And would any audience member would like to remove item 1 or 2 for separate consideration at this time? The chair would then entertain a motion to approve items 1 and 2 in accordance with the staff's recommendations.
Motion to approve items 1 and 2 in accordance with the staff stipulations.
All right. Vince made the motion and Mike Kwasny seconded that motion. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 3.
Andrea. Thank you. All right, good morning. Item number 3 before you is a conditional use permit. This is 25UR012. This is a conditional use permit to allow an oversized garage at the property located at 3319 Skyline Drive. This property is located in the Park Forest District. Future land use of this property is forest conservation. And this property takes access off of Skyline Drive, which is classified as a collector street on the city's major street plan. What the applicant is proposing to do here is to construct a 40-foot by 46-foot detached garage. That makes that garage about 1,840 square feet. The garage, as you can see in this rendering, will be constructed southeast of the existing single-family dwelling, and access to the garage will be extended from the existing driveway. The garage is proposed to be constructed with 2 double-car garage doors, and it is intended to be used for personal hobbies and storage of personal vehicles, boats, ATVs, things along those lines. So some of the things that we take into consideration when we're looking at oversized garages, one of them is whether or not the building materials will match the residence. So the applicant has submitted documentation showing that this garage will be constructed with building materials that do match the single-family dwelling. In addition, the single-family dwelling is going to be painted to match the garage. They're going to refurbish the exterior of the single-family dwelling, and it appears it's going to be kind of a white tone with earth tone garage doors, earth tone accents on the house, things along those lines. Submitted elevation drawings. This do indicate that the proposed garage, like I said, will have 2 double stall garage doors on the front, and the side walls will both be blank walls, no architectural variations in the facade of the garage, things like wall accents, varied roof lines, color variations. So the absence of those residential and architectural design features were hard for us because they're not consistent with the residential character of the property or of that surrounding area. Another thing that we look at is in history, the Planning Commission has looked at the location and placement of these oversized garages and required them to be located behind the residence. On this particular property, as you all are probably aware, this area of Skyline Drive, there's a very steep slope from east to west on this property, which makes the backside of the property practically impossible to construct on. So there is very limited buildable area on this property, and due to that, this property really does not support additional development, especially to the size that this garage is going to be. Detached garages are not common in this Skyline Drive area, mostly because there are topographical restraints that hinder it on most properties. There is a comparable oversized detached garage that was approved by a conditional use permit in 2021 off of Pevins Parkway. That's within a quarter mile of the subject property. That property was located off of a local street rather than a collector street that Skyline Drive is, and that garage did also incorporate some architectural and residential features like wall accents, windows, varied roof lines, things along those lines. The location of that garage, like I said, is southeast of the existing dwelling, which does place that garage approximately 20 feet higher in elevation and closer to the road than the single-family dwelling is. So the size and placement of that garage will make this structure pretty prominently visible on this property and pretty dominant from the street view, especially when you're traveling south on Skyline Drive. There are some existing mature trees that you can see in this picture down in this area. Those will serve as some minimal screening to the adjacent properties and the roadways, especially when you're traveling north on Skyline Drive. However, there is no screening on the north side of this garage, which is primarily what you'll see, like I said, when you're traveling south on Skyline Drive. And that is the angle of view that is going to be most dominant. The applicant has said that there will be additional trees planted if the city does require it. However, new trees could take several years to mature depending on what kind of tree you plant. I do also want to point out that there is a note on the plat from this property that does state that specific geotechnical and slope stability information has to be submitted for review and approval for every building permit on these properties up here. So that will need to be done in the event that this garage was constructed. What else do we look at here? So really, staff, when we looked at this, we were looking at this angle of view. So we were looking at the size of this garage and the location of this garage and the idea that this is really the only buildable area on this property. But again, it really just does not support this kind of development in this location. So staff did find that this request is not in harmony with the surrounding neighborhood or the historical requirement of the Planning Commission with regard to these oversized garages. Even though there are some factors pertaining to this property that do limit the buildable area behind the single-family dwelling, the proposed garage is still going to be visually dominant on this property, and there's no aesthetically pleasing elements to it, no architectural features, no residential features that will kind of allow it to tie in a little bit better. And with there being very limited screening, it can't be effectively screened from the street view or from the adjacent properties. There is also a 3-car attached garage located on this property that measures about 910 square feet. So to show you a couple real life pictures, this is looking directly at this from the opposite side of Skyline Drive, right at their driveway. This is looking on the other side of Skyline Drive, closest to their property. That is the single family dwelling. You can see there the 3-car attached garage. Like I said, this will be repainted and the outside of it will be refurbished. So this is looking on the other side of Skyline Drive, looking towards the property. You can see that that single-family dwelling sits below the hill view for the most part. And then this is looking at the elevation as you're going up. So you can see that there's that elevation difference between this picture looking at the single-family dwelling and this picture looking at where the oversized garage would be somewhere over in this area. There's that elevation change again. I do also want to point out, since you can see the overhead power lines in this picture, that this does not impede into any sort of overhead power line easement or anything along those lines. It is far enough away from those overhead power lines. This is looking south down Skyline Drive at this. These are the trees that would shield or provide some sort of screening to that detached garage from the traveling population going north on Skyline Drive. And this is looking north on Skyline Drive. So you can see that it's kind of at the bottom of a hill. You're going to go up in elevation going past this property. So ultimately, staff is recommending denial of this conditional use permit due to it not conforming with the regulations of the oversized garage and the placement and the location. I will stand for any questions. I do believe the applicant is in the audience as well.
Thank you. Vicki?
Thank you. So I did want to point out that the applicant did provide 3 letters from neighboring properties indicating that they did not oppose the proposed garage. One of the difficulties with this one, and we appreciate, people need storage. The world that we live in today, we all need storage. This particular property adjacent to Skyline Drive has a significant influence on our scenic byway, and that is what we refer to as Skyline Drive. And so we've brought other applications before you where we're needing to preserve that viewscape and the impression of the scenic natural beauty of Skyline Drive. So unfortunately, they didn't have another location outside of this adjacent to the street. If they would have, we certainly would have supported the garage. It's just truly the location up against the scenic byway.
Thank you. Eric Hikas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The visual impact of the structure is pretty predominant. Thank you, Vicki, for your comments. On previous projects where we've looked on Skyline Drive here, we've also discussed the impact on view shed. Is that also part of the consideration? Is it worth discussing here today? As of, I guess, the view to the west.
Mr.
Vicki?
Chair,
Yeah.
yes, and I think that's why Cassie was pointing out that the existing home is at such a lower elevation that it limits the view shed intrusion. And again, it's just the placement of the garage that's the issue.
Thank you.
All right, I have a speaker request form from the applicant, Joshua Coles, if you'd like to address the commission. And once you're up, just if you could identify yourself for our minutes.
Stand by.
You should be able to just put your phone right underneath that camera.
Is there a way to change the hue on the contract?
That's pretty good.
It's not terrible. Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you for taking the time. My name is Josh Coles. I'm the future owner of this property at 3319. We'll be closing on it next week. We submitted some of these drawings, I believe, yesterday or the day before, kind of speaking to the impact of the view from Skyline Drive. I've had multiple general contractors come out and give me different options and discuss different options about where to place a detached garage. And ultimately, it kind of comes down to there are 2 buildable areas on the lot, as can be seen here. You see the house over on the right. You see the proposed garage over on the left, and kind of down there in the middle is a flat area of land where we could potentially put a detached garage as well, or a attached garage to the house. Based on kind of my opinion and everybody I've brought over to the land, putting anything kind of down to the left of the home would block the view and the natural landscape of kind of that canyon, those trees, and the westward facing view. Whereas putting the detached garage up closer to the road, it is would be seen when driving on Skyline. There's no doubt about that, but it does not block any of the westward views. The only thing that it truly blocks is a view of a telephone, or not a telephone pole, the power lines. So it would essentially be covering up the power lines. Additionally, after we got the report from the development team, we created a different rendering of the garage. The plan was never to have the garage not have windows or varied roof lines or no facade. Here renderings are plans to renovate the outside of the house up towards the top. So our plan is to paint the house white, whitewash all of the brick, brown garage doors with black roof and black accents. Similarly, we didn't have time to addend the actual drawings of the detached garage, but this is a rendering of approximately of what we would plan for it to look like. We wanted to have windows, the garage would be storage along with kind of a hobby area for myself. I enjoy working on cars, snowmobiles, boats, all those kind of things. So there would be windows both on the east and west side to bring natural light into the garage. It's a very nice property. Our goal is to make it look nice, make it look harmonious with our home. When designing and planning on where we wanted to put this, special considerations were taken into the account of not disrupting the view of Skyline Drive, right? We decided to purchase this property on Skyline Drive because of the views, and we don't want to block or disrupt any of the views for the community. We understand that there's a significant amount of people who walk and drive along Skyline. Dinosaur Park is up there. There's all the trails, and we don't want to disrupt that. The garage that has been spoken to on Pevins Parkway, there's some photographs of that. Again, right here, very harmonious with the home. And this is essentially what our goals are to mimic something like this, which, like has been said, is about a quarter-mile away. It would directly match the house. Would it be in front of the house? Yes, it's not buildable behind the house. Other buildable areas on the lot, in my opinion, would block westward-facing views, which would detract towards Skyline.
Thank you. We appreciate it. We may call you up for further questions from the commission if there are.
Thank you.
Vince Vidal.
Thank you, Chair. Was there any plan to put any kind of fire suppression system in this garage?
There's not currently, but if that would be helpful, we most definitely could do that. The plan right now is to have running water and sewer to the property, so we could put a fire suppression system in there if that was requested.
And you're changing the color to matte, and you're going to change the color of your house as well.
Correct.
Is there a particular reason to do that?
The color of the house?
Yeah. And the garage?
My personal preference. The house is very, the house was built in 2010. It is very yellow, so the inside walls, the outside walls, everything in the whole house is that yellow. So it's more of a personal style and preference. My wife is more the one designing and picking that, and she's at home with the 3 kids.
And So the pictures that you brought this morning are more in line as opposed to the white garage that we saw with the yellow doors?
Yeah,
Yeah, you're gonna change it to go in line more with the structure and the look of your home.
correct. Varied roof lines, those type of things. When we created the drawings, the goal of the drawing wasn't necessarily to say this is what it's going to look like, but more to give the development team the elevations and the height of the home. We had originally come to the development team with a plan to do a detached garage with a mother-in-law suite above that. Now, that requires many more variances, and after discussion with them, the height of adding a mother-in-law suite on top of the detached garage would have been quite tall. It would have been very difficult to block that at all from the north and coming from the south with trees and those type of things. So we decided to amend our plan before bringing it to the commission and removing the mother-in-law suite to bring down the elevation of the garage to make it less prominent, less of a visual impact.
Okay, thank you.
Mike Kwasny? Can you request again your mic? Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I guess I see this garage sitting up on the hill. And is it possible that this garage could be lowered, i.e. making it a little bit further into the ground, making it more level with the...
Yeah, so not the greatest Photoshop skills. From this photograph, the garage will actually sit back further. So if you see the little yellow playhouse on the left, the left side of the garage would sit just behind and to the left of that. Now, it's hard to tell in the picture, but in real life, that slopes up to the power lines. So our plan would be to actually cut down into the hill, and you'd probably end up having to cut 6 to 10 feet into the hill, kind of build your walls. So it would actually be set kind of trying to be a little more road level back there. So it would not be quite as tall.
So the picture kind of shows it a little higher than what it would actually be?
That is correct. It would be higher, it would be set back a little bit further and a little more to the left.
Okay, and then along with, I think what Vince was going with is more of the earth tone colors to try to blend in, and it seems like the white is going to just, and the problem with us determining what you should color the house, next year you could change it again and again and again. So
Sure.
we can't determine that, but the earth tones are going to take away and not make it quite so. But you could put rock work that would actually also take away from the effects of the size of this garage, I think. And you have some of that on the front of your house as it is.
Yeah.
You
so-
showed in that picture that there was some, but I don't know if there's a way to make it where it doesn't, I guess, flash out at you.
Yes, so speaking to that, again, the rendering on the bottom isn't exactly kind of the dimensions of the proposed garage, but you can kind of see our plan would be to have rock accents along that face, and it would cover a majority of the face of the garage other than the garage doors, which would be more of a earthy, dark brown tone, which I don't know that comes up here. But the garage doors are the dark, kind of woody looking garage doors.
Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
so as you know, we always get in trouble when we start redesigning a site in the middle of a meeting. But Josh did mention something about wanting a mother-in-law suite above the garage. And an accessory dwelling unit can only be on a one-story structure, and it can't be above a garage. If there is room on the property to attach this garage, if that does work for you, you could actually, because it's attached, build a mother-in-law suite above that part of the garage. If that works for your plans in order to have a second housing unit on site, That would just be a part of the building permit.
Yeah. And we've discussed that, but again, in kind of our opinion, adding anything additional to the home on that side will distract from the westward views on Skyline, whereas this proposed plan does not disrupt westward views from Skyline.
Do you also have windows? Excuse me, Mr. Chair, my
Yeah, Vicky.
apologies. Do you also have windows on that side of the home that would have to be removed, taking away your views from inside the home?
Yes.
Yeah, that would
Yeah,
be an
there's-
important
yeah,
feature.
there's that entire,
Okay.
you can kind of see here on the
Just
thing, there's
trying to think
probably
outside
6
the
or
box
7.
here to get you the most of what you truly want to do with the
Yeah.
property.
Mike, are you good? Karen Ballman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The comments that Mike made are some of the ones that I was trying to address. I think that it's the white that I saw the first rendering that I went, no, that's not going to work. I mean, it's just like a giant billboard. And I think, to me, the garage is set so far apart from the house that I don't care if the garage looks the same as the house or not, because it's like two separate pieces of property almost. So, like you said, I think it's difficult for us to sit here and address how to do this. And I don't know, with a conditional use permit, can you qualify, this is the way we want it to be, looking all the time? I mean, it's hard to say, well, you know, like you said, you could change the color, but it's the size of the garage and the blank wall that I saw.
Mr. Chair,
Vicky?
Planning Commission can. I mean, you could, if you approve this at that location, saying that you want the elevation lowered by X number of feet and you want slate rock features on 1/3 of the structure, street facing, and you want the colors to not be white or anything bright that would detract from the natural beauty of the area, you could do that. And when we issue that building permit, we would ensure that that happens. But over time, it could be repainted or redesigned. Those things don't need a building permit, so we would never see that again. But for the most part, I think when you folks do, and you have done this before on other garages in scenic areas where you've required different architectural features similar to what Josh has got before you right now up on the screen. So you could do that. We just don't have a way of policing it going forward.
Okay.
Another comment, I mean, if wanted, we could plant fast-growing trees that start off at, 3 to 5 feet. They grow 3 to 5 feet a year. It would essentially be covered in 3 to 5 years.
Okay, for me, it's hard to say, okay, let's do this, this, and this, and agree with you, and both of us agree. And so, to me, it would be easier if we just continued this so he could come back and show us a better idea of what it's going to look like. That's for me. I don't know about the rest of you, but that's kind of what I'm looking at this point.
Okay, Eric Hikas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd wholeheartedly agree with Karen Bowman. I think we should continue this, give the opportunity to make these changes, drop the garage height, maybe get a little better rendering so we can all see what the changes would be, and then let's take a fresh look at it. That would be, I would get on board with Karen there. Thank you.
I'm gonna just jump in. I'm kind of in the same boat. I have a different response to the what you brought today versus what was in the meeting, and then listening to the discussion of I think we need a better rendering of the intended structure in the intended place in the location that you're looking at, because to try to imagine, well, it might be closer to that existing structure, but further back, it's hard for us to work with that. Vince?
Thank you, Chair. I agree. You've shown good intentions of working with the city in what we want to do in the future, and to protect not just your property and other properties within the city. So I'm kind of on line with that. If you're willing to reconsider and come back again, with what we've been talking about.
Mr. Chair?
Vicky?
So if that does work for you to defer this for 2 weeks, the direction I believe I'm hearing from the Planning Commission is that they would like that rendering that you provided us to show the lowered garage with this elevation, maybe darker tone so it's not so light and bright as you're coming down the street. And then if it is your proposal to place some trees, then interpolate those in as well, and maybe even show them mid-maturity so that it gives the impression of screening that garage.
Sure, absolutely. Happy to do that. Do you think
Thank
we can
you.
get that done in 2 weeks?
Mike Kwasny?
Or do you think we need more time than that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As I hope you recognize, we're trying to work with you on this and hope.
Perfect. So I think that's a great plan. We'll work to get that all set up for 2 weeks then from today. And then I would encourage all of you to kind of drive by up there to kind of get an idea of the view. You know, one of our thoughts is, you know, if anything, we're going to be blocking the view of the power lines, which is not necessarily a positive scenic view up on Skyline there. So we will work to get those renderings for you for that date in a couple weeks.
Mr. Chair, the next meeting would be May 8th.
Okay. Mike, can you request again? There you go.
I hope that you recognize the fact that we'd like to work with you. We think you've got a project here that is we'd like to go along with. The other thing, I think maybe you have a rendering, if it's possible, and I'm not trying to add a lot of expenses in the front here, but what would the garage right alongside of the house do? You've already got a big house that's taken away that view. I don't know if, depending on the size of the garage, I don't know what effect that would have. Now, in this rendering, you show it not attached to the house.
Yeah, and the reality is from a usefulness standpoint, I don't know that there's a lot of additional usefulness, and from a technicality standpoint, it starts to really drop off on the left side of the house there. So attaching it to the house, I don't know that is feasible without spending, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars to create footings and walls to prevent it from sliding down Skyline. It would have to be set back further left from the house to make it a reasonable thing that we would do.
And there's no option to the right of the house as far as you're too close to the street, I'm assuming, to...
Yeah, and we can bring some pictures of that, but when you come down the driveway, directly to the right of the garage is the slope down from Skyline, which is probably somewhere between 30 and 50 feet. So the garage is already cut into the side of that with a wall there, and that wall is probably 6 feet tall.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
you can kind of see the wall there.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see that there's no way to build that side.
yeah, the thought process would be to take out that small garage, make it an oversized, and do that concept. But again, we're not into design. We want to try to work with you. So I think you've got your walking orders.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. I'll see you guys all in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Eric Heikus?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've got a story and a motion. So when we laid out Skyline Pines 20 years ago, we called some of the really steep lots on the west side, we call those the nickname the Big Sur lots because of obvious steepness. So my motion is to continue this without bias to the next meeting. I think we've noted the projected and preferred updates and the visual context that the Planning Commission would like to see, and then we'll take a fresh look at it then.
That next meeting is May 8th. Is there a second to Eric's motion? I think Karen seconded it. All right. Any discussion on the motion to continue to May 8th? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4.
Okay. So good morning. This item is rezone request to change the general commercial district portion of 1727 Creek Drive to medium density residential district. So the northern portion of the site is office commercial district, and the applicant is intending to rezone that portion as well. And this is, the intention behind this is to accommodate an affordable housing project for Black Hills area habitat. So the property is split zoned, general commercial district in the south, office commercial district in the north, and it's surrounded by industrial and commercial uses. So a rezone to a residential district doesn't appear to align with the existing land use patterns in this area. So the future land use is mixed use commercial, which is intended, as in the name, for mix of uses and for commercial development, and does not support medium density residential district. However, the city's comprehensive plan does encourage flexibility when applying the future land use categories to encourage a range of uses and to encourage a range of densities. And the city's comprehensive plan also encourages infill development, it's overall supportive of infill development, and supportive of affordable housing overall. So this property is located adjacent to Creek Drive, which is a minor arterial street on the city's major street plan. There was no transportation concerns identified during the review of this application. There is a transit stop within less than a quarter-mile walking distance from this property, which is relevant whenever we're talking about a housing project, so that bus stop would be located right in front of Family Fare. So this was the preliminary site plan that was submitted by the applicant. What this site plan shows is that this property is going to be developed with 41 townhome dwellings and with one single-family dwelling. So this site plan is preliminary. It may change slightly, but so this is the proposed affordable housing project. So the office commercial district portion of this site would allow for apartment development, standalone apartments, but neither of these zoning districts allows for single family or allows for townhome dwellings on their own lots. So these are just some site photos. This is looking north into the property from Creek Drive. Public notice was posted on the property. This is looking north along Creek Drive. Looking south along that same street. And this is looking south into the property from East St. Charles Street. And this is looking east along that same street. And then looking west. So staff is bringing forward this rezone today without a recommendation. If the Planning Commission determines that the rezone meets the approval criteria, they may approve the request. Some of the concerns, as noted in the presentation, is that this rezone isn't consistent with the surrounding zoning. It doesn't comply with the future land use, but it is intended to provide an affordable housing project, which is a benefit for the city overall. So with that, stand by for any questions, and the applicant is in the audience as well.
Thank you. Vicky?
Thank you. You may recall years ago when we had an application in from a previous owner to rezone that northern portion of this to office commercial. And at that time, there was consideration that this would be a great employment area for an affordable housing project. It's transient housing, it's not owner occupied. So they come, hopefully get on their feet a little bit, and then move into owner occupied sites. When Black Hills Habitat area purchased this property, one of the first things that we noted, and in visiting even with Scott, it doesn't meet their business plan to really do apartment development. And so working through a long series of what a townhome apartment project would look like, and you did approve one out in Orchard Meadows that you drive in and everything's on one lot, and there's a manager's townhome, and everything internal is private. It just didn't work for that business plan. So rezoning this to MDR lets them stand up their individual business plan, and these would be owner occupied, and there would be 42 of those lower income properties on one site. But in all fairness, to give you the opportunity to look at the criteria required for a rezone, and to hear today from Black Hills Habitat why it is they need this and how they would design this. We wanted to bring you just a neutral position on it so that you can hear from the applicant and make your decision and recommendation to City Council.
Yeah, before moving on, I just wanted to disclose that in the previous iteration of applications on this property, I was involved with the apartment. I have no involvement with this current application or any of the land, obviously. Vince, you have a question?
Yes, sometimes we get emails from neighbors and on particular issues like this one and others, and they're not here to discuss it, so I can't really ask them. But if you could address one of the concerns that was brought up, I believe that who was it, Bill Barber, and he's concerned about how the deed and the other issue that he was bringing up, how it's going to be dealt with if there are violations where they're not adhering to city ordinances.
Mr. Chair?
Vicky?
So Bill Barber is the owner of the Garfield School renovation that they turned into apartments. And then there are 8 Habitat homes that were platted, built, and sold around Garfield. And so he's had a relationship with Habitat as a part of that. And I did get a chance to visit with Barbara before the meeting, and I'm sure she's going to reach out to Bill to see if there's any assistance that Habitat could give if there's a homeowner that's having issues and not being a good neighbor. But I would defer that to Black Hills Habitat to see how they might address that.
Sure, I'd love to hear from them. Thank you.
We do have a couple speaker request forms. I'll just start with Scott Ingman along those lines. Same request as usual. Once you're up at the microphone, please identify yourself.
Well, good morning, Chairman and esteemed members of the Commission. We appreciate this time with you. My name is Scott Engman. I'm the Executive Director of Black Hills Habitat and been working with Habitat on affordable housing issues in the community for 20 years. And this particular site is really exciting to us because over the years, serving 715 people with housing solutions, what we found is that having housing that is accessible to resources in the community is very important. You know, fuel costs continue to go up, and the closer we can get housing into those core services that people need, grocery stores, banking, fitness centers, barber shops, I mean, all the things that we need, if you can walk to those, what a way to save money, right? So it really brings some efficiencies to people. But it also, I think one of the fantastic parts about this site that's always excited me is the proximity to the termination of the bike path. So within a block of this site, people can get on the bike path and literally ride their bikes or walk right into downtown Rapid City and enjoy the restaurants and nightlife, and heck, they can go all the way to the west side. So what a way to maximize the use of that wonderful asset our community already has. As was already shared, our plan really is to build 42 affordable townhomes for ownership. And if this conversation today was about more rental housing, I don't think we really need to spend much time on it because we already know you can build over 100 apartments on this site. But as we look across the community, we see a lot of quality, affordable apartments going in, but we don't see the entry-level, first-time homebuyer housing going in that our community desperately needs, and I know all of you in the city really want to see completed. In fact, recently, I just noticed the March 25 Elevate Rapid City report on housing indicates that the average home listing price is $450,000 right now. The median household income in Rapid City is about $60,000. So you do the math, and the median home or the median income family can basically afford about a $200,000 to $250,000 home. And that's exactly what we want to build here. We want to build homes that municipal workers can move into. We've served policemen, we've served medical imaging professionals from Monument, we've served people from all walks of life in our community who are, in my mind, the frontline core workers that help make our community such a rich place to live. So with that, what I'd like to share is just a couple of the highlights that I've seen specific to this site. There was questions about medium density residential not fitting in this particular location, but as you can see, the kind of orange area to the south, that's like a block south of this, there's already MDR there. And if we go a block west of Campbell, just on the other side of Campbell, there's also MDR. And then as we go north on Creek Drive, there's actually single-family homes tucked into what is industrial or light industrial along the creek there. So it's kind of already we have a mix of uses in this area, but I believe wholeheartedly that if this lot would have worked for apartments or offices or business, it would have been developed. I think that zoning that Vicki referred to happened somewhere around 20 years ago. And we're here to say we think this is a great location for home ownership, but it does need this zoning change so we can get the individual utilities and that roadway in that would be managed and owned by the city. Are there any questions for me?
I'm just going to sort of repeat Vince's question. This with townhome developments, there is a question of who manages that. Does everybody manage their own yard? Is there an HOA? Is there, some sort of, manager on site? What's
Sure.
the proposal on that
Yeah.
side of it?
So the whole project will be will have its own homeowners association to take care of all the external green space. And if, I don't know if we can get back to that slide, but in the south end of the project, there's actually green space with a pathway, as you can see in the southwest corner. So all of that will have to be maintained through an HOA for the project. In addition to that, I know Mr. Barber has shared some concern about one house at Garfield. And, as some of you know, we purchased that whole block and had the vision to redo the school and put houses there. So one house out of 8 that went in has had some issues. And the concern has been related to why don't our covenants give us as Habitat the power to foreclose on a family because they're not taking care of their yard. That's really what the issue is. We sell the home, so we're not a landlord that comes in and kicks people out because they don't take care of the yard. We've learned from that, but we've changed our covenants so we do have more teeth to our covenants. But this particular site will have a dedicated HOA to address that concern that's been brought up, and I appreciate the question.
Can I just have a follow-up? Will Habitat maintain a position in the HOA, or is it going to be sort of given over to the eventual owners?
Yeah, we will be a part of it for standing it up and getting it going, but I don't foresee Habitat leading the HOA, way off into the future. I imagine a 3 to 5 year transition process as we get the home sold and get that HOA stood up.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We may call you up for other questions. Eric, did you have one for Scott? Okay. Eric Hikas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Scott. So our city, we're in a deficit of housing. We're in a deficit of housing across all spectrums. To say we need affordable housing, we also need high-end housing. We need middle-range housing. We need a whole myriad of housing choices. The the top is cannibalizing the middle and the bottom is cannibalizing itself, really, essentially. What I really loved hearing from Scott was the mention of all these services that are within a mile or less of this facility. I'm going to support this one because of that thoughtfulness that's gone into having these potential townhomes within all those essential services that are needed on a day-to-day basis. It's really a sustainable thing. In fact, lead credit for site selection is just that. If you have 10 essential needs within a mile of your current location, you check that box. Those of us living on West Boulevard can really appreciate that because we have just that. We have those essential services right within walking distance of our homes. So I don't have a question. I just have support for this one. And I think having an inventory of housing options is the goal in our community at this point for people to have choices for housing. So, and putting that home ownership and putting people in places they own is a big difference between having apartments there, I think. I really support what Scott's doing there. Thanks.
Thanks, Eric.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, Vicki?
I just wanted to point out that the two applications before you today are to rezone the property. We are not reviewing and/or approving this layout. And so anything that would be allowed in medium-density residential could potentially be constructed on the property. So if it is the desire of this applicant to come forward with this layout, there will be some revisions that will be needed. If there's going to be individual lots, each lot has to be a minimum of 4,000 square feet. I don't know where the lot lines are and if that's being met or if these are going to be condominium, but just acknowledgement that we are not indicating approval of this layout. We're just here to visit about the rezone itself.
That's fair. Thanks, Vicki. I also have a speaker request from Barbara O'Malley, if you'd like to address the commission.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for hearing us today. I'm Barbara O'Malley, and I'm the Chief of Staff at Black Hills Area Habitat for Humanity. And I just wanted to give you a little bit of background, and I'm sure you are all very familiar with this kind of stuff. Commercial and residential uses are compatible and found in every major city across America, and it's referred to as mixed zoning. Urban Land Institute, the oldest and largest network of cross-disciplinary real estate and land use experts in the world, explores various approaches to mixed-use zoning in their report called Reshaping the City: Zoning for a More Equitable and Livable Future. The report highlights exactly what we've been talking about, how cities are using zoning tools to encourage development with diverse housing types and walkable mixed-use projects. It also emphasizes the importance of collaboration, just like it's happening in this room right now, the collaboration between local governments, community members, developers, and other stakeholders that really achieve these goals to build strong communities. The Urban Land Institute goes further in their mixed-use development handbook, highlighting projects that have been very successful in the Carolinas, San Antonio, San Jose, Maryland, Florida, and Tennessee, characterizing mixed-use developments as those that, number one, provide 3 or more significant revenue-producing uses such as retail, entertainment, office, residential, hotel, and/or civic cultural recreation. Number 2, fosters integration, density, and compatibility of land uses. And number 3, create a walkable community with uninterrupted pedestrian connections. Mixed use is also one of the 10 principles of smart growth, a planning strategy that seeks to foster community design and development that serves the economy, the community, public health, and the environment. Black Hills Area Habitat for Humanity owns this land at Market Square and has been working on this project for at least 4 years and even more, with the many years of advocacy that it takes to make a project like this come to life. Habitat currently has a $3 million federal grant through Senator Round's office that is ready to be deployed to use in this important project. So that money is ready to be invested into our community. We appreciate your service and your interest in working with us to facilitate smart growth for Rapid City. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Karen Ball. Oh. Okay. Alan Glover, if you'd like to address the commission.
Thank you. My comment on this, you're going to hear from me in one of the next topics here. I'm all for these affordable housing projects, and I do see that there is some area here that is undesignated for housing. But I can tell you from the perspective of somebody in the Johnson Ranch subdivision that was a setup like this, I have been dealing with this for the past 8 years. What gets promised for open space and parks projects, if it is not mandated by you in the permitting of this unit, this development, many times is not going to take place. And I am adamant that if you approve a project like this, which is worthwhile, that you also attach the teeth to make development of this green space a reality for this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen Baldwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think this project, if it wasn't surrounded by industrial, commercial, would be a no-brainer. I mean, it's a right spot for development of homes of any kind, with all the conveniences close by that they could have. And it's kind of flat, which makes it nice. I think that the question for us is, do we want to rezone something that's not normal, that you don't normally do? It's like a spot zoning, and we don't really do that. And that's the heartbreak that I have about, supporting it. But I think the project itself is great, and I know that Scott does wonderful work and has done a lot with the Garfield School area, which I think was nice. And as far as the comment that this gentleman just made, when we rezone something, we can't put stipulations on things and how it's going to be built and stuff. So I guess the small question I have is, if we decide to rezone this, the next project or the next time that they come forward, they would have to go through a building permit. Is there a way we can rezone this? I'm trying to think of the right words that allow us like a conditional use permit. That's not what I'm saying, but something like that. You know what I'm saying, Vicki?
Mr. Chair,
Vicki.
your way to ensure that you're going to see this layout again would be to rezone it in conjunction with the plan development designation. And then that would require that they bring in an initial and/or final plan development for your review and approval, and it would address lot sizes, driveway locations, landscaping, the style of the homes, the care of the open space. That would all be a part of that plan development. We've really pushed hard of late not to put that burden on affordable housing projects because it is somewhat time consuming. They're not bringing in any additional information beyond what they're going to need for a building permit anyway. But it's time, I think, becomes the relevancy to it. If you are concerned, though, that putting 42 owner-occupied low-income homes on one property requires some additional review to the details of, as Mr. Glover indicated, ensuring that open space, your option would be to approve the rezones, or you have two of them today, in conjunction with the plan development designation.
Okay, that's what I was, thinking about. I guess I just couldn't remember the name. I think that's affordable, not affordable, but an idea that helps us make the decision. But I'm going to I know there's some other people that want to speak, so I won't make a motion at this point.
All right, Mike Kwasny.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Karen, those are great comments, and it kind of goes along with some of my thoughts. It feels like we're forcing this into an area. To me, I like the idea that we have sidewalks that go through downtown. I think that's great. I did have a question. A lot of times when we do the zoning, the reason we have this zoned a certain way is that there's possibility of flooding. This is nowhere close to any flood zone or any.
Vicky?
Could you put the zoning map back up? This particular property, I do not believe has any floodplain on it, but there is flood hazard district to the north of it. And you can see in the northeast corner, the upper right corner, that's the flood hazard district designation to the east of this property.
Well, I know when the flood did go through in 72, there was a large area down here that was flooded. So I guess that's why I had the question why this was zoned commercial as it was. I think the concept is great. I'm struggling with where it is. The other part I had was the HOA. When you put an HOA on an affordable house, I don't know if you make it affordable. I don't know what the costs are for the HOA. I struggle with affordable housing and adding a lot of cost on top to keep it going. What makes it affordable then? So I'm struggling with this one. I don't know that I can go along with it. I think Eric brought up some great comments, and I think I agree with a lot of what he said there. I just struggle with where this is and how this is making affordable housing. So,
Vince?
Thank you, Chair. I know Karen's ready to make a motion, so I'm going to leave it to her. But I think we just have, I'd like to hear what the Habitat has to say. They came to the microphone, so I'd like to hear their thoughts on what Mike just brought up.
Sounds good. Scott?
Yes, Mike, I really appreciate your comments and your questions. And I think, again, as Vicki said, we're here to talk about a zoning change, but just to provide some more background information to help all of us understand how Habitat operates and why it's a little bit different is that with our program, every mortgage that we write is affordable for that family. So we literally customize the mortgages to work because everybody has different incomes, everybody has different obligations. So it's not a one-size-fits-all. But what it is a custom solution. So when we talk about HOA being an added cost, you're right. Do I want added costs in the project? No. But do I want the project to look awesome 20 years from now? Yes. And I think an HOA is the way to get there. We will have to do it as efficiently and as affordably as we can because that cost will be considered in what the ultimate mortgage payment is that's created for that family. So unlike other projects where you have a fixed mortgage payment that everybody has to pay, we actually have the ability to change those mortgage amounts on the first mortgage so it's truly affordable for that family, keeping the payment below 30% of their gross monthly income. It's kind of a mind blower. I mean, there's no one else that does it this way, but it's unique to us, and I wanted to provide that clarification. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott. While you're up, can I just pose the question? What's your feelings on a planned development designation being added to the rezone?
We see this as a collaborative process. I mean, Vicki's been wonderful to work with in the planning department, and I think we all want to get to a solution that is best for the community. And we're patient. I mean, we've been at this for 4 years, right? We do have a commitment from the senator's office, and we have this grant funding. We want to use it. We don't want to lose it, right? So to the extent that we can achieve that process in a very timely manner, I don't see a major problem with it. I think there's a lot of people that care about this project, and we're going to take a lot of comments and input to make sure it's done in the best possible way so it's designed correctly and meets the needs of the community.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you. Vicky?
May I ask Scott a question?
Sure.
So Scott, you heard me say earlier that a townhome lot requires a minimum of 4,000 square feet. It did not look like from the drawings that each one would meet that allowance. The planned development, if that is what the Planning Commission decides to do today, would be the tool that you could ensure that while some don't meet it, others exceed it, and there would be variation and some consideration to have smaller lots and then larger lots knowing that overall, you're never exceeding the one townhome per 4,000 square feet density. So that would be in your favor if you think that's something you might need.
Sure. And I appreciate that, Vicki. Again, I'm not here to draw any hard lines and say we will or won't do those things. Our goal is to get the best project to the finish line, and we have Dion with Respec Engineering who's with us here, and Dion would obviously be a really important voice in this consideration, as would Respec, to help us consider those constraints. But yeah, I mean, the flexibility is really appreciated, and I believe we could come to the right solution with a planned development if that was what the commission wanted.
Thank you. Eric Hikas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I feel like one of the witches of the Odyssey, because Karen and I are so like-minded on this one. That was my very question. Is there a vessel that we can use to ensure there are teeth in this, and also we're not just giving a blanket rezone? So I think the planned development designation is the answer, and I would support that. I think that's a much better refinement of just a blanket rezone. So, and if Scott's supportive of it, I think you might have your solution here. I'm going to save a motion though and let you make yours, Karen. So,
Pat Roseland?
Thank you. I think this is a good project. I know Scott and Habitat for Humanity has a rich history and a very positive history in Rapid City. And Rapid City is, from what I hear, is wanting affordable housing. And we should make it as easy as possible and still stay within the constraints of what the city needs and wants. And I feel this is a great, we say, spot for affordable housing, right close to groceries, all this kind of stuff that's really needed for that type of a housing project. So, I can't vote on this here. I'm just interested bystander, I guess, as city council. But I feel like this is a good project, and hopefully you can move this on. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Pat. Mike Quasney?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Scott, I waited until you sat down for the question that I have here. What I thought I heard you say is that you make it so that 30% of the income, would the HOA be included in that consideration?
Yes, it would.
Okay.
We'll let you sit down before we ask you another one. Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think for me to make this motion is good because it not only shows that we're just not spot zoning it, but we are spot zoning it with some criteria, if you want to call it that. Anyway, I'm going to make a motion that we approve the rezone of this property with the planned development designation attached. Is that
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
if we might,
okay?
if we could maybe revise that amendment, that motion to say to rezone RZ 008 and RZ 009 to medium-density residential with a planned development designations. Because remember, you're changing from office commercial to MDR and from general commercial to MDR.
Correct. I think you just made the motion that I wanted to make.
Yeah.
Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
All right, Vince seconded that motion. And I should ask, does anybody have any issue taking both 4 and 5 items at the same time? Okay. So motion on the floor is to approve the rezoning, as Vicki stated, by Karen, seconded by Vince. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. Okay. Motion carries with Mike Quasney voting no. And that leads us to item 6.
Good morning, Chair and Commission. Morgan Twombly, Environmental Planner. This is an application for a rezone for a project located at 1936 Provider Boulevard. There we go. This property is zoned general commercial district. The applicant is proposing to rezone this property to medium density residential district for the purpose of placing 2 15-unit apartment buildings on this property. Future land use of the property is mixed-use commercial. The intent of mixed-use commercial is to provide a mix of uses, a balanced mix of uses more specifically. And if you look to the properties to the south, I'll actually go back. You'll see that we have some apartment buildings, and then adjacent to them, we have some multifamily. To the south, we have some low-density residential. This property is located on Provider Boulevard. To the north, we have East St. Patrick Street, which has been identified as a revitalization corridor. And then to the east, we have East Highway 44, which is an entrance corridor. This is the applicant's initial master plan, which shows that this lot would be commercial, as would the now apartment buildings to the south. Part of the criteria for a rezone is we're looking at have conditions in this area change significantly to allow and give us an impetus to rezone. As you can see, this is the applicant's master plan. It has been developed to exactly how they intended, so there isn't really an impetus for a rezone in this circumstance. This is the most recent master plan. You can see now we have apartments where there was commercial, so we're really hoping to try and maintain that commercial integrity along East St. Patrick Street. This is looking north at the property. There's currently a lot of fill on the property because there's development adjacent to it. Looking down Provider Boulevard, you can see a really good example of those apartments, and then the lower density residential. Those apartments as they exist today, staff believes provide a buffer for those low density residential districts from the commercial uses to the north, and to place more apartment buildings on this property might impede that buffering capacity. This is looking up Provider Boulevard. You can see that they have met their notice requirements. And this is looking south at those multifamily units. Back behind, you can also see that there is a preschool back there as well. So ultimately, staff is recommending denial of this application. We feel that there is already a balanced mix of housing types in this area. What this area really needs is commercial uses. We want to provide that commercial integrity, keep that commercial integrity along these important streets, and provide some neighborhood amenities which are currently missing in this area. So I will stand for questions, and I believe that there is also a speaker request form out there.
Mr. Chair, so a little history. I think some of you probably remember when Johnson Ranch first was just a concept plan, and then it came forward, and of course, as most residential subdivisions occur, we started getting our single-family residential lots first. And that really started the need for some common area and parkland. And as Morgan showed, that original plan did show that the developer would be bringing in a community park site. Over time, that was diverted to the city parks department, and the area for the park was also expanded to include a little more acreage. When the rezones came forward for the apartments that are currently existing out there, there was numerous individuals that had started calling this place home that had concerns about the apartments and it changing the character of the residential development that they bought into. And so at that time, we tried to assure them that while this does allow a diversity of housing, and we do believe that within each subdivision there should be a diversity. We like to see single-family townhomes and apartments. We did also acknowledge that preserving the character of that original master plan, showing that for the most part this was going to be commercial and single-family residential, that we would stay in line with that master plan going forward. Subsequently, the city's future land use plan and the current zoning really aligns well with that original master plan. So again, we can appreciate that plans change and that the developer is now wanting to come in and make additional changes to that master plan. But it truly does start chipping away at the character of the subdivision as a whole. And based on the comments that Morgan made specific to trying to ensure that we're preserving that commercial corridor to meet the amenity needs for those that live there, would like to see more of this commercial preserved.
All right, I got a couple speaker requests on this. Alan Glover.
Thank you. Some of my concerns have already been addressed in terms of a little bit of the history. But from the people that I have spoken to at the subdivision, we do very much not want to see more apartments going in here, especially in the limited space that is being proposed. When we dealt with having to have the apartments put in there, many of us feel like our voices were not heard in terms of the way that that development of the apartment complexes was put in there. What this developer has done as a history is promote one thing, then start chipping away at it. And in the case of the apartments, I can't tell you how many planning and zoning and council meetings I attended to try to register our objections to that, but the tactics used by the developer were to schedule a hearing, delay it, schedule another one, delay it, schedule another one, and delay it. This now is the third scheduling of this hearing for this particular subject. And I really resent the tactics being used by this developer to get what they want just by simply wearing people down to plan to show up. What we have had here is a very good initial concept of a development. We have a mixed multiracial neighborhood development here, and I have been fighting for the development of this park area for this subdivision that has been abandoned by the developer for his own personal gain. What has been done with this subdivision in these commercial areas in this park area is that this developer continues to try to change and restructure the platting of these lots to do things that were not originally promoted here, one of them being the Abbott House, which was originally going to be in this park area, and then subsequently replatting that so that eventually, even if the park were developed, it would have been an area only 70 feet wide, which is a joke. Now the city has this, and we're still waiting to get development of this park area. At least we did get preserved the area for the park. But for not only this subdivision, but for all going forward, you folks need to put some teeth in your requirements that green space and park space be developed for these planned developments. Right now, if you would divert your attention to the to the Johnson Ranch Road there between Providers Boulevard and South Valley Drive, half of that street is presently the playground for those families living there. This is not acceptable. We need to get these things done, and by chipping away and allowing these developers to repurpose all of the things that were originally proposed that these people bought into is not a good idea. So we would request that you not approve this rezoning request. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Stanley. if you'd like to address.
Hi, I'm Mike Stanley with Dream Design International. So, good morning. Mike Stanley with Dream Design International. And we would actually ask for the approval of this rezone from general commercial to MDR. In looking at the overall land use plan and the current zoning, we feel that MDR is a good transition between the general commercial and the MDR. The rezone that was done, right where it says private driveway with the existing apartment complex, the Abbott House to the south, and the other MDR along Provider Boulevard, expanding this and matching that MDR to the northern side of Provider Boulevard, we feel complements that zoning. The parkland that was donated and that has been brought up, I believe it has not been rezoned and it's still indicated as general commercial. So that is actually, I guess would be considered green space or open space. This lot's access is farther into Provider Boulevard. On this current zoning map, it shows that as one large general commercial space, but with the lot line that's in there, the access point for this lot lies farther to the south and more into the actual subdivision of Provider Boulevard. Oh. Hey, there we go. Bringing that access farther into Provider Boulevard. So again, that's why we feel MDR would be a better use of this parcel now that it is two parcels, which currently we're building the Starbucks on the northern side of that to add to the needed commercial in this area and entrance pieces, as was brought up by staff. We also believe that this continues the housing opportunities for this area of town, which is important. And we look at this as, if I can go back to the zoning map. Sorry, is this?
No.
Oh, all right. As an end cap to that apartment complex and apartments that have been built, again, where it says private driveway. So with that, if you have any questions for me, I'll be here to answer anything.
Thank you. One question with the zoning map up that I was just having trouble going between maps. So where the black arrow is pointing to this parcel, starting that red zone along St. Patrick Street and then along East Highway 44, this shows it as general commercial. It appears to be drainage lot, though. Is that correct? I mean, can we expect any development along there?
If you go back to that zoning map, you see the blue?
Uh-huh.
That's the drainage. That's public drainage. So that cannot be developed out.
So, but the red can?
The red should be able to with specific design.
Okay. Yeah, this is probably a personal problem, but with all the different maps, I was just having trouble getting a handle on what could be coming. Mike, do you have any clarity?
I would also add to that too. I know I would have to look at the plat, but I also would probably, I believe there's some access issues off of East Highway 44 onto those lots that run along the red commercial lots that you're noting too.
Oh, gotcha.
So, but again, I would need to look at the plat.
Okay. All right. Any comments, questions from the commission on this one? Mike Quasney.
I believe the gentleman that made the comments earlier has another comment, and I'd like to have him come to the mic and voice it.
Mr. Glover?
Thank you. One of the things I forgot to address is that when we were getting into the approval process of the apartment complex, you realize that with the addition of that apartment complex, the housing density of that subdivision is triple of what it was designed. There's around 75 houses there, plus or minus. You put a 150-unit apartment complex in there. As I pointed out at the time that was approved, in a 150 unit a complex in 4 acres there, and you have 1 2-lane road going in and out of it. That's essentially the size of a medium small town in South Dakota, and there's no others that have that kind of limited access in and out of there. You're now wanting to put another 30 apartments and 45 parking spaces in an area that would need to have a shoehorn and a compactor to jam it all in. We already have a situation where at times we don't have the water pressure that we should have there from adding all of that apartment complex on the water lines provided by Rapid Valley Water. This is getting to the point where it's overkill. You've got way more traffic than was ever designed for that road system coming in on Provider Boulevard from St. Patrick Street. The problem is that when that gets busy there, now we still have the problem of everybody coming out of that apartment complex coming south through the subdivision in the areas which those children play because we don't have a park system developed for them. You might want to consider that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Glover. I guess I would like to add to that a little bit. I think the commercial area here not only will support the apartments and the houses that were put there, but it also supports the surrounding neighborhood. And I think that was part of the intent when we passed this, is to bring commercial into that and allow some markets to come into there to help those people so they don't have quite the distance to go. We talk about affordable housing. We talk about not having to have them go clear into town, not having to drive, so forth. I think it's important that we commit to that commercial property zoning, so that I would make a motion to deny. With that said.
Okay. Mike Quasney made the motion to deny the rezoning request. Is there a second? Mike Gallagher seconded that motion. Sorry, note taking. Any discussion on the motion to deny? All right. All those in favor of denial, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, item number 7.
Apologize, looks like we're having some technical difficulties here.
I'm just impressed you had a backup so handy.
A Boy Scout, come prepared. There we go. Now we're in business. Apologize for that. Mike Dugan with the Finance Department. What we're discussing with this proposed TIF district, the City of Rapid City will be the applicant for this. And it'll be for some improvements to the Robbinsdale area. So this particular district boundary is quite large. It's just under approximately 1,800 parcels that will be included in this district. The zoning, there's multiple zoning, as you can see, within this district, given the size. Major street plan, there's 2 minor arterials that run through the boundaries and 2 collector streets as well. So the total amount of this TIF is just going to be under 28 million, which includes a little over 10 million in capital costs for the projects that will be described here. Financing costs of about 17.5 million, and then the application administration fees of 55,000. The need for TIF funding for this, once again, the applicant is the City of Rapid City. This proposed TIF will fund the street portions for 4 CIP projects located within TIF boundaries. This TIF will cover just the street portions. The utility portions do have funding allocated outside of the TIF request. Also will be included within the capital costs are 5 street pavement rehab projects. Those are just for the street pavement rehab projects. And then lastly, this proposed TIF will include upwards of 500,000 in funds available for improvement costs that are needed at the fire station at 700 East Fairmont Boulevard. So the Robbinsdale projects, so 3 of these were planned. The Hawthorne extension would be a new project. I believe this next map will show where that goes in. But this TIF will just fund the street portions. The non-TIF funded will come through outside funding that's already been allocated for the utility portions of these projects. These are the 5 pavement rehab projects that the TIF will fund for the improvements. So this is the improvement map on here that all these projects will be within the district boundaries. The one project that will be new is this Hawthorne extension. It was identified in a staff meeting a couple months ago that this would provide alleviation to kind of traffic concerns in here. I believe the access is kind of be taken through a strip mall parking lot. So this will correct that problem in the future. This project is proposed to take nearly the full 20-year allotment. It shows, given just a 2% appreciation, given that nothing as far as development, new development will take in place. There is some vacant lots. There are some barriers to developing those. I believe one of the vacant lots that has been tried in years past is kind of a mountain of a hill that it would take a great cost to improve. So this is just assuming a 2% increase in value for all the properties located within the district boundaries. So given that estimation, there'd be a little over 28 million available in projected increment over the course of 20 years for this district. So there is another component to this that outside of TIF funding. Part of this this district would be the city be committing $500,000 per year for the next 3 years for single-family residence rehab projects. Those funds will come from the general fund, and the idea behind it is there'd be a revolving loan fund where 25% of the committed funds would be gifted for projects, and 75% would be distributed in the form of low-interest rate loans. There will be an urban revitalization team set up. They'll kind of orchestrate. There'll be an outside member that will identify need, and then will help facilitate those projects as far as getting those projects completed. An idea or kind of examples that can be used for is just for safety and efficiency of these homes. Electrical work, windows, roof repairs, things like that that provide efficiency and safety for these homes within the district boundaries. Another component that will be outside of TIF funding will come from the Community Development Block Grant funds, working on any improvements that are needed to the Robbinsdale Park. So those funds would be dedicated just for that park area there. This is, given its public infrastructure, would be a local district classification, which means that does add an additional levy to those within the Rapid City School District. So these are estimates assuming a 5% increase in the valuation of the city Rapid City for each year. So growing out to 5 years from today, as the increments building up, it'd be about approximately $1.15 per 100,000 of owner-occupied value. Pushing this forward, once again, assuming a 5% increase in valuation for the city of Rapid, that would move to, given the increase in the valuation, about $1.95 per $100,000 of owner-occupied value. So that will encompass all of those within the Rapid City Area School District, which in this map would be those residents within the purple areas, which does get into Meade County and Somerset and Black Hawk. So this shows that the current active districts and the breakdown of what the classifications are. One thing to note, with the current 16 active districts, we're about 1.48% as far as the total valuation. We can go up to 10% of the city's total valuation. With this district, given that the base certification will be quite higher than projects in the past, this will move that up to 6%. Once again, we have up to 10%. Historically, it's been around that 1.5%, so that there is room for future projects. Then also with the assumption that Rapid City with these projects, and then outside of TIF finding the projects that are happening in Rapid City, the valuation of Rapid City itself will continue to grow. With that, I will stand for any questions.
I'm going to ask my usual one. With the city as applicant, if they spend the money on all these projects ahead of getting it, are they prepared if the projections of the increment do not materialize?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. Because yes, this will be funded by the city. So the city will be the lender, I guess, initially, or essentially on this, that will be collecting that interest that does generate. But yes, that has been identified in that.
Okay.
So.
Mike Kwasny? Oh, Vicky, sorry. I turned you
I was just
off.
going to add on to what Mike Dugan said. So these are capital improvement projects that have already been earmarked by the city that need to get done in this older neighborhood. By making these improvements as a part of a TIF, it preserves more funding for our CIP budget because our city continues to grow and it continues to age. And we are trying to get creative on how we can cover and maintain all of our infrastructure, our public infrastructure. And this is an innovative approach, but through this TIF, it does take a lot off the CIP budget and puts it towards this TIF proposal that I believe Mike Dugan has done a good job showing should very securely pay back within the time allotment needed.
All right, Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First question, I think you answered it. This has never been done before or attempted by the city to use a TIF this way. Is that correct?
Mr. Chair, while we have used TIFs to do street improvements, we partnered recently with a developer on building a portion of Reservoir Road that otherwise would have become a CIP project. This is the first time that without the aid of a developer, we're really coming in, taking the lead and doing numerous projects that need to be done in a timely manner as a separate TIF application and not associated with some other land use improvement.
It seemed unique to me that way because I was kind of in watching. I will go through all the stuff here, and it's kind of unique the way it is. How was the boundary determined? Because as I look at it, I go just a little bit out of this, and I see other places that are probably the same. And maybe what happens if this is successful is that boundary may get bigger. So.
Yeah, the boundary was set up to the projects that were identified that were planned to build around that, then also include the Robbinsdale Area Fire Station Park, and then also to include the improvements that are needed to the fire station there that's in there. So this just builds, the boundary builds around, because all the funds per state statute is, all those funds expended have to be within the boundaries. So we had to make sure the boundary encompassed all the projects that are identified.
How does a new project, how is it affected? I.e. they're putting a new building, new business, a new apartment. How are they affected by this?
You're saying if there was new construction to take place and they wanted a TIF that was in these boundaries?
How would the TIF affect that? I read something about that. You said just now the 25% gifted for properties or for projects. I was confused a little bit by that.
So that would be existing properties. So that would just be for existing single-family homes that are needed safety and efficiency repairs. So that wouldn't be to anything new. So you couldn't use those funds to build another home or tear down a home and rebuild. Those would just be for older homes or homes that need repair within these district boundaries.
Well, there's a project going in that I'm aware of that is community home type project. That is not affected in any way by this TIF.
No. If they were to apply for a TIF, for any kind of public infrastructure to develop that project, it would, because that would be an overlapping TIF, and now this Robbinsdale proposed TIF would have to pay off first before any funds could go to any new project. If a new TIF was to come about in the future, it would have to overlap this if it wants to be within these boundaries.
Okay. Well, I like the concept of fixing some roads. I like the concept of taking care of some parks. I like the concept of the fire department getting what it needs to so it can go to the future. It's just unique, and I would hope this works out well for us.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Whoever
Vicky,
wants
please.
to go.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to state that when you look at this is the older Robbinsdale area. This is our affordable housing, guys, and it's aging, and it's continuing to age. And what we've noticed through building services is that a lot of these homes are slipping into substandard status. So to be able to use some of these funds to reach out to these homeowners and try to make those safety improvements as needed to save the structure is huge in an effort to ensure that we have entry-level homes and affordable homes. And this is just in an absolutely great neighborhood for that type of housing.
Before you go, Daniel, I'm just going to ask this. What I heard you say is that those applications for housing help have to be within the district boundary.
Correct.
Is the city ready to receive complaints from somebody on Talent Street that they have no access to this while their neighbor over on Cleveland does?
That, to begin with, the city would be partnering with an outside entity that specializes in this, and so the city will not actually be the one that would be administering this program. Instead, it would be a commitment for 3 years, $500,000 each year to develop a fund of $1.5 million for this. But then that entity would be, of course, occasionally having to provide that information, to homeowners that they may not necessarily apply. With that being said, I think this is the first attempt by the city to really make use of the tax increment finance program for one of its original intended purposes. When you go back to when this originally began, this entire program in the state, it was meant for urban renewal. And this neighborhood's an exact, example of the idea of trying to have a concentrated effort to stop any potential backsliding and really restore it. So for another 40, 50 years, the neighborhood can continue to be a great neighborhood for moderate and lower income individuals, or even other people who choose to live in the neighborhood. And so this was really meant to ensure that that there's a concentrated effort of a variety of city resources, so that over a 5-10 year period there's going to be visible improvements as well as structural improvements for the neighborhood. Without the TIF financing, Hawthorne Street will not be extended, but also there will not be improvements to the fire station and the road projects themselves. Originally, the road projects were included in the CIP fund. Unfortunately, due to budget constraints, the road projects are no longer included in the CIP fund. And so the utility projects will be completed, but without this, the road projects will not be. And so this is really a necessary financing tool to ensure that those projects are completed, but then also that would hopefully be joined with future CDBG funding, as well as $1.5 million from the general fund to make a significant difference in this neighborhood.
Thanks. I like trying new things. Karen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the city has been involved in several TIFs, not necessarily a lot of ones that they've brought on themselves, but I know we've done like the Red Rocks well and stuff like that out there.
They be reaching out to the neighborhood so that individuals are aware of that, because we do not want to spread the news so much that you end up upsetting other individuals that can't necessarily apply. But that ultimately is going to be a part of the partners' responsibilities, that when they receive those funds, that's going to be part of their job description of going out. And actually some of that is going to be the first thing that they will end up doing is talking with our ambulance service and our mobile medics to see, are there homes that they are often going to that they have trip hazards or other things that should be addressed, that there are tenants or individuals that are living there that need some assistance, so that hopefully they can continue to remain in that home.
Okay, and the $500,000, that's not part of your capital cost? It's in this TIF. Is it something extra that the city council was going to authorize, or how does that work?
So that would be additional funding that would be included in the 2026, 27, and 28 budget. Okay. So when you see the interest payments that come in from this, a portion of that interest will fund that $500,000 for those 3 years.
Okay. Okay, I have a couple other questions. The amount of the 5-point-some%, almost 6%, that's in our 10% valuation, does that include the TIFs 93 and 94, which you've already gone through? I don't know if they've finalized in the council yet, so how much is that going to add to it?
I believe those added 0.5. Okay. So it'd be like 6.05, 6.10. So, yep. So I believe would be around a little over 6%. That 6.10 in there. Okay. As of now, well, if those were to be approved, and that's the Homestead new TIF, and that would be that innovation corridor if those were both to get approved by council.
Okay. So this is a big jump from,
Absolutely.
Which is a big area, so I can understand that. The other question I have is about the interest. I don't know what on page 10 of the project plan, it listed $14,000 in interest, and I don't know if that's your amortization schedule. It doesn't say what that schedule really is, but it looks like an amortization schedule. So if that's 14 and then 17 on the actual listing of your financing costs.
Oh, I see what you're saying there. Yes, that 14, as far as that, doesn't include the capitalized interest. So this will be capitalized annually. for this project. So that adds to that principal. We'll jump up from the 10.3 to the 13.4 over the years. So that additional about 3.1 million is just capitalized interest.
Okay, so are you going to put another amortization schedule in the project plans so it shows the 17 million?
I can sure break that out into a,
I think that would, at least people would look at it. Maybe I'm the only one that looks at that and go, why is it not the same? So,
sure, yep, I can modify that.
all right, that's all the questions I have.
Eric Hikas?
No question, sorry.
Vince?
Well, thank you, Chair. Both Karen and Eric brought up some of my thoughts and concerns, so I don't want to bring those up again. But if I can get you to explain, what is pavement rehab? What exactly is that going to entail?
Roger, you want to jump in on this? Got it.
All right, thank you. Pavement rehab's come in a lot of different flavors, but thank you for the question, Vince. It's when we go in and if the curb and gutter and the sidewalks are in relatively good shape, then all we do is we assess the project, and we either, if the subgrade is solid and we don't have a lot of sinking and failures, we'll do like an edge mill and just do an overlay, asphalt overlay on the project. If there's been a lot of failures and a lot of repairs and stuff like that in the area, then we'll go in and we'll remove all the asphalt, and then we'll install an edge drain along the edge, probably redo the gravel and put the asphalt back in at full depth. So they vary depending on the condition of the street. And then quite often we try to schedule 5 years down the road to go in and do a chip seal, and that's kind of like repainting your house and stuff like that. But does that answer your question?
Yeah.
We try not to touch the curb and gutter unless we have to, because that's gotten really expensive. So if it's in good shape and is functional, we try to leave it in place. We may do minor repairs on that. The other thing we quite often have to do on those rehabs is install the ADA ramps at the intersections and all that, so, okay.
No, that answered my question, thanks. But the reason why I brought this up is because of Eric's point that, once we open up a TIF for this, and the reason why I say that this is my old neighborhood here, and so full disclosure, but I know that I've had neighbors that have really complained about one particular street or pavement, and that was on Grandview, the one that leads up into Grandview Elementary, and I don't see that's on the list. So I'm just concerned if that, and maybe Roger, you can answer that, if Grandview's been looked at for that pavement.
I apologize, I can't recall off the top of my head. We do have Grandview on the list here, and without looking at that specific location, I don't think I can answer your question directly. I apologize for that. So.
Well, and I don't want to say no, only because I like new ideas and what you've come up with, but these neighbors talk, and they're going to have a concern and say, well, why did you do this street and not that street? Now, Roger kind of explained what we were going, what the city would do, and try to leave the gutters and the curbs alone because they're fine. But on the other hand, we also know that there could be possible issues with access for our services for fire and theft, and so with that in mind, there are some can other streets be included in the future, I think is the question.
Within the TIF, there's not going to be further projects beyond here that would really be funded through the TIF because there is limited capital resources. With that being said, as part of the annual CIP projects, that the Public Works Department does go through and they do a pavement index of all the city streets, and they prioritize the difference in this. And so really what this is providing is a concentrated effort to improve some of the streets in the neighborhood. By no means is it all the streets.
Right.
There are other streets that need to have some additional work being done. They're still going to be on the city's regular routine maintenance list. This is just a way to ensure that more streets will be completed than otherwise if this TIF does not go through.
Well, and let me make it my point clear. As the reason why I brought up Grandview in particular is because the people that have to send their children to that school use that street, and they don't even live on it. So this is the reason why folks on that particular street have had concerns in the past. So anyway, I don't want to recreate that, but maybe Roger can help me out here.
Mr. Chair,
Vicki?
so I drop my granddaughter off at Grandview almost every day and live south of this district myself. And just looking at the condition of that street in comparison to so many of our residential streets in this area, it's rated much better shape than those that are getting worked on. You know, if we had the funding to do more streets, we would. And if at the end of the day, there's an increment that is still left for the life of the TIF, we can always come back and amend it to add additional projects in, so long as we have the assurance that the increment will be there to cover the cost.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Good call, Karen. Look for a motion to extend our meeting past 9 o'clock if we need the time.
Second.
All right, Eric made the motion, Vince seconded to extend past 9 o'clock. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Karen. I'm just going to take a moment to further my comment about be ready for neighbors calling. I support this. I think we need to try new ways to get infrastructure built in the city. I'm going to support this, but that's easy for me because people aren't calling me when their street doesn't get worked on. And sometimes in Rapid City, it can feel a bit like the lottery if you get a new street in front of your house. So with the house rehabilitation funds and to Vince's point with the street reconstruction, city should be ready for some feedback on why not mine, because I've had the same feelings. Sorry. Mike Kwasny.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And to Vince's point, again, these streets that are identified, so they've been identified as the ones in most need? Is that what I'm hearing? The streets that are identified in these projects, as you have them laid out, these are identified as those that need it the most.
Roger, we're going to go for
Mr. Chair, thank you. We go through a very detailed, as Daniel explained, the process to try to evaluate all the streets, and we rank them all, 1 through 500 and some throughout the city, and we try to get the most bang for our buck, I'll say. So yes, these are the ones we've identified that are on the top of the list for the next 5 years. Finance asked us to go out and look at what projects we had in this area in the next 5-year CIP, and these are the ones we identified. That doesn't mean the rest of them aren't going to get done at some point in time. And I also might remind you that with the amount of streets we have in the city, it would take us about 274 years at our current funding rate to rebuild all the streets. So, sorry.
I do respect what you're saying there.
But yes, these are the ones we've identified as the highest need at this time through here. I'd also remind you that we've done several projects in this area over the last 20 years. One of the first projects that Stacy Titus and I had the pleasure of working on was Hawthorne Avenue from Meade Street down to Oakland. And that one's still in really good shape after all these years. Stacy and I quite often have a beer and say, we're proud of that one. So we go through these every year and reevaluate. I do want to point out something Daniel said. We recently did complete a pavement condition index for every lane of every street in the city. So we have that available to us. And if you're ever interested in looking at it, it's quite interesting. It was done by a professional company. They drove a van all over town with lasers, and they know every crack, every rut, every pothole in the city, believe it or not. So at that time, but yes, these are the ones these are the 1-2 projects that are at the top of the list. I do want to point out, though, Mike mentioned in his briefing that Hawthorne Avenue Extension is a new one on the project. That does not exist right now. We identified that as a need to move people from this neighborhood up to St. Pat and try to alleviate some of the traffic on these other streets. There's a drainage component involved in that one with a box culvert and connection back up to St. Pat. We have had people come in interested in that vacant property there, but it just doesn't pencil out for a developer to do it. So we've put it on this list.
With that said, you touched base on my next question. Do any of these involve, in this area, there was a lot of drainage work done in most recently. Are any of them because of drainage and enhancing what has already been done in the area?
I can address that one also. Yes, thank you for the question. That's an excellent question. Just as you know, we're working our way west right now up that Mead Street area. So yes, they will address drainage to get the drainage off the streets and into these major drainage improvements that we have been making.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Roger, 274 years. You got a long ways ahead of you. We expect you to be here at the end of that.
Eric, I am going to retire someday. There's a race. Thank you.
Anything else from the commission? Karen?
I'm going to make a motion to approve the creation of the district as well as the project, approve the project plan. If I can do both of those at the same time.
I'll second it.
All right. Karen made the motion to do both the approval of the district, creation of the district, and the project plan in a single motion. Vince seconded that. Any comments on that? Mike?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I hope this works. I hope it's the future, so thank you.
All right. Anything else from the commission? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item number 8.
Okay, item number 8 is another new application for a TIF request. This will be in the form of a grant. The grant will be for $300,000 to go towards the financing or to help with facilitate the construction of this project. And what this construction will be is for a large, little over 18,000 square foot rock climbing facility. This project is unique as well as we saw at the last proposal. It was almost 1,800 parcels. This will just be the subject site itself. So with this project, if it does go forward, the principal arterial and minor arterial and then a collector. The project details, so what this project will compose of is the 18,685 square foot full service indoor rock climbing facility. It is new to the community. There are other facilities that offer rock climbing, not to this level or the amount of services that this business will bring to the community. There'll be climbing leagues, weight and fitness rooms, fitness classes, retail facilities within this. It adds 4 full-time jobs and 4 part-time jobs. This is being seen today. It was recommended by the Opportunity Capture Fund Committee for a tax increment financing request. The reason being, as far as coming from the Opportunity Capture Fund Committee, that would differ from other projects that would go through the committee, and then if they were awarded funding, this has a source of repayment. So this wouldn't be taking away from another project. This would have a source of repayment, and the source of repayment would come from the project itself, generating those through the construction phase, the completion stage, and going forward would be able to repay back this request identified by the projections. And also this project will generate, additional sales tax with it being economic driven. The boundary itself is just the subject property. It's just under 2 acres. This lot has been vacant, and it has been vacant since the closing of the Fountain Springs Golf Course. This particular parcel was a part of that past golf course that has closed down. And this TIF classification would be economic development. The TID funded cost, so this would be structured in the form of a grant that would go towards the components to facilitate to get this business up and running with the construction. So the grant would be $300,000. The interest would be a little over $132,000 for the repayment, and then the city and the county admin fee. So this request with interest, the admin fees would just be over $472,000. This is the total components of putting this project together. This includes the real estate land, which the applicants already own. This would be to construct the building, the design, the engineering, the FF&E, all these components. So this project is just over $6.3 million is the estimate to get this up and going and operational. This does meet the requirement of the infill development, as it's not extending the existing development pattern. It's going to be using the existing infrastructure, the water, sanitary streets that are around it. It is surrounded by existing development, and it doesn't stretch out the fire and ambulance services. So this is an area view of the subject property. So it will be taken, or will benefit from the existing streets and the utilities around it. There is existing development around this property. This is the site overlay. This is the proposed. This is just proposed. This hasn't gone through the approval process on the site itself. The industry standard for, according to the applicant, for the medium-sized gyms is at its tallest point 45 to 50 feet. This would be 50 feet, so that would be considered in the industry a medium-sized gym. The larger gyms, you get down to the Denver metro area, those are 55 to 65 feet, for example, as far as the top height of those. This is the elevations. So your top corner would be, your top right would be the front elevation of the building, and then your sides and your back of what this property is proposed would look like. So once again, the property taxes generated from this project would go to repaying back the TIF request. So over the course of the life of the TID, it's expected to approach about $1.4 million in property taxes over the allowable time of this district, with the TIF request coming in at $472,000 with interest and admin fees. So it shows there's more than enough available over the years to repay back this request for this project. Amortization, so it's estimated an 8-year payback, so it would be a quicker payback based upon full construction and build out of this property with the property taxes it will generate. And their need for TIF, so this is a component they'll need with their financing to get this going. They are working with a primary lender and also involving the SBA. They are going through the process with that. This will help with the facilitation of getting this project up and running. As you can see, and this is just based upon my own research of these gyms, that it is costly to get these up and going. There's a lot of upfront costs to get these gyms to where they need to be, these facilities, and not a lot of return. So as you can see, year 5, as this is ramping up, gaining memberships and gaining that, it's about just under a 6% return on their investment. So there is a lot of upfront to get these type of facilities and businesses started, but not a huge initial amount of return. So this will help facilitate getting this going with their primary lending functions. So once again, this will be an economic development. So those property taxes, as far as keeping the school district whole, will be made up statewide. This won't be with those within the Rapid City School District. So this was just a modest, the current valuation of this lot is $194,000. It'd be a modest increase in the total valuation with this. So with those two projects from the April 10th, so we'd be about the 6.10, 6.15 range if all of these 4 projects that were from the 2 today and the 2 previous were to be approved. And with that, I will stand for questions.
Thanks, Mike.
Yep.
Eric Hikas.
Thank you. Cool project. The Opportunity Capture Fund Committee, who and what is that? Is that? I haven't heard that one yet. That's interesting.
Daniel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That was part of the previous Vision Fund round. There was $1 million that was provided to this committee to make recommendations for grants to various different impactful economic development projects, either that are unique retail, commercial type establishments, or that are larger industrial type projects. They have so far provided about $450,000 of the $1 million. And so when they were reviewing this, when they saw the substantial amount of construction that was going there and how much that was going to be increasing the total valuation of that parcel, and they said it probably makes more sense for it to be funded through a TIF. That way it doesn't take away from the about $550,000 that's left for the community for those. It's the committee is comprised of 2 council members and 3 appointees from the mayor that have been approved by the council as well.
Thank you, Daniel.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Kwasny.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When I look at this project, I think of when you're starting a business, the thing that comes to mind is location, location, location. And I struggle. I'm not sure that the reason the golf course is no longer there is because of location, location, location. You don't have anything like kind here to draw to it. You don't have, I struggle with, I don't know if it's set up for success in this location. And that's what I see when I envision this, because a lot of this out here is businesses that are building or it's just doesn't feel like there's a lot of draw that they're going to be able to get somebody. They're going to have to force somebody to come out there and do it. Now, that said, I guess if it's really successful, if you have something that's major, if you build Mount Rushmore, they're going to come to it. But I just, this is a location thing for me. I just struggle that it will be successful, and it's just throwing money at something that a golf course did not succeed there. So thank you.
If I could answer, and that's a great point as far as location. I do believe to the north of this lot, that's a CrossFit gym facility. So it is, I guess, alike, but you're right, there's not a lot of like that, but there is, I believe that's a CrossFit gym.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Daniel.
That was a point that the Opportunity Capture Committee did bring up to the applicant as well. The applicant's response was kind of throughout the nation, these facilities tend to be destination type locations. They're not usually along major thoroughfares or in major retail areas, simply because of the price of the land and everything like that, that it just adds to the cost of the construction. But that individuals actively seek out these locations and they're willing to drive. So the majority of people that go to them are not, it's not a drive that you're looking and saying, hey, let's stop and spend 2 hours climbing. It's kind of a purpose that individuals have a free Friday night or a Saturday that they're going to seek out, particularly that destination. And so that's why they believe that this is an appropriate location.
Just because of that CrossFit gym was mentioned, I'm jumping ahead of Karen, but I've got to point out that CrossFit gym is a big, beautiful building that was built without a TIF. And I I kind of struggle on these on picking one over the other. What deserves a TIF and what doesn't? Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have one question. The city approved we were looking at the previous TIF, and that was at 6.75%, and this was at 7%. Is there a reason?
The Robbinsdale TIF, in order to get as many capital projects as possible, we did reduce it to 6.75 versus 7. Right now, the going rate should be at 7. Robbinsdale, just to eke in the Hawthorne Street extension, every time we were getting estimates on that, the prices kept escalating, and so at the end of the day, the only way to make it work was to start reducing the financing on it.
Okay, that answers that question. I have a comment that doesn't really pertain to this TIF, which I just want to throw out. The swim center that's down at Roosevelt Park, the second floor is a maximum of people that can use that at 30 people, and there's like 50 people that want to do that. And I know years ago when they built that building, they were going to add on and connect it with the ice rink. And I don't see that anywhere. I mean, it's such a big project and such a lot of money to do that. And I just wanted to throw that out and say, we could use that extra space. I go there, so that's why I know that. So it's just a comment I just wanted to add.
All right, I guess I'm gonna, since I have a moment, I'm gonna further expand my comment. If I were able to vote on a building permit only for this project, I would vote wholeheartedly in favor of it. This seems like a great thing to add to our community, but with tax increment financing, in absence of other guidelines, I come back to what's the public benefit. And on this one, unfortunately, I'm just not seeing it, and so I won't be supporting this. Jeff Bailey. Welcome to the commission, Jeff.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I promised myself that I wasn't going to make any comments during my first meeting. So if my question comes off as being somewhat naive, please excuse me. Mr. Dugan provided some training on TIF. I know a little bit about the TIF process, and I was impressed with the fact that our city, the TIF capacity was at 1.5, let's say. That was last week, the week before. As of this meeting now, if I'm understanding it, our TIF capacity has now gone up 6.15. If the current proposal before us is approved. So, Mr. Ainsley or Mr. Dugan, is there a concern that we've really elevated? And does this mean that down the road maybe we won't be entertaining as many applications for TIF applications?
Sure.
Daniel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. That is really a function of the Robbinsdale TIF. That is the highest assessed valuation that the city has done, and that drastically increased that. There was a lot of discussion about whether or not that should proceed, but at the end of the day, that was done simply because there needed to be a lot of improvements in that neighborhood, and that was realistically the only way we were going to be able to fund it, because our CIP fund, unfortunately, is not growing at the same rate as what the cost of the improvements are. So with that being said, when we look at most TIFs, including this one, the total, the increase that causes compared to the total assessed value is always a fraction of a percentage. And so whether it's this or any of the other TIFs, they're very marginal increases with the exception of that Robbinsdale TIF. So what that means is even at that Robbinsdale TIF was wildly successful, the city will not be able to do another project like that for several years. I just 100% that will not be possible for probably 5, 6, 7 years. The city cannot do another TIF that large. With that being said, TIFs like this, or a downtown TIF, or even a residential one that would be on the outskirts, they would be able to do that because usually the valuations are, again, a fraction of a percent. And our total assessed valuation as a community is continuing to increase quite dramatically. And so that percentage, even at 6.1%, will start falling over the next couple of years as our assessed values keep increasing. It does limit our ability, though, to do another large TIF like that Robbinsdale.
Thanks, Daniel. Eric Hikas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Switzerland on this one. It's right in the middle. I don't really have an opinion. I'll follow up on Daniel's comment that I've seen these in several locations, Oklahoma City, Bozeman. They're usually located in industrial areas, pretty gritty locations, because they're not first tier destination. It's more of like, that's where the climbers go and hang out and climb. I mean, that's their thing. So I would say that the location to me is ideal for this kind of facility. So it's my opinion, but I'm also siding with Eric on if this were just a standard building permit, I would say let's do it. But is this TIF worthy? I don't know, right? So I haven't been convinced either way, and so I got nothing. So I'm just going to see what everybody says, right?
All right. Vince?
Thank you, Chair. No, I agree with the comments to what we're looking at, and especially when it comes to the TIF policy, when you're trying to create a job, and what it says is the project will generate at least one full-time job for each $10,000 in principal value of the tax increment financing, or would create a minimum of 50 jobs. And of course, this isn't doing that. So, we do want to encourage businesses to develop and to grow here. I just don't believe that this project is doing that. Thank you.
Karen?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't disagree with the comments that are being made, but I think things have changed since other TIFs that we've done in the past. I mean, we've had TIFs for businesses of every kind and housing of every kind. We've gone out of our way to make sure that those projects work. This one is different because it's coming from that opportunity fund. And they are saying, we want out of our $1 million that they've got to spend, we would like to do these projects. And of those projects, this one would be able to be paid back. And it's they're the ones that are saying we can spend $300,000, not necessarily the city, but as a committee, they're saying this is what would be a good project that we could fund. And I don't know what all the other ones that they've got on their plate that they want to use their money for, but at least this one is the one that would be sustainable, and it's just a few years that could be paid back. And I guess that's my comment. It's just another thought to look at. It's different than most TIFs that we've ever done because it's of the grant part. So.
Eric Hikas.
Protocol question. Can I make a motion and then vote against it? Okay, just throwing that out there. All right, so I'm going to make a motion to approve the tax increment finance district and then the subsequent plan per our discussion today, and I will decide what my vote will be when we all vote. Just to see this through. How's that sound?
Okay. So Eric made the motion to approve creation of the tax increment district and approval of the resolution for the project plan.
Mr. Chair?
Vicky?
Maybe we should do a roll call vote.
I think that's probably fair. Karen seconded his motion, and Vince comments on the motion.
As far as the second part of that, again, if we don't vote for the TIF, as far as what happens with this project, do you have any idea?
Reminder from either Vicky or Kinsley on this?
So they still have the option of securing a building permit. They would just need to secure their gap funding from another source.
Thank you.
I'm going to add one last comment. And again, my struggle with this is I don't know how to differentiate a climbing gym from a fast food restaurant from a gas station. I think some projects need to be able to go forward without public benefit or without public subsidy, and that it's almost unrelated to the fact that it's a climbing gym or the location of it. So motion on the floor is to approve. Andrea, roll call vote.
Was it to approve or deny?
Approve.
Eric?
No.
Karen?
Yes.
Gallagher? Hikus? No. Quasney? No. Vidal?
No.
Bailey? No. I have 7-1, motion fails.
All right.
Or 6-1, excuse me.
That's our last agenda item on the regular agenda. Anything to add today, Vicki?
Just one, and thank you for welcoming Jeff Bailey earlier. This was a heck of a meeting for your first meeting. We threw some hard ones at you. We put a lot on your plate for you folks to kind of work through in the middle of the meeting. It's not often that we bring things to you without a recommendation because we're very opinionated as professional planners. But now that Jeff has joined us, within the next 60 days, Jessica will be bringing forward some training opportunities for Jeff, Planning 101, and we'll probably loop some of the other current planners in and engineering to do a Plating 101 training. So if any of you just want a refresher, we'll send out a meeting invite as to when that is to see if you'd like to join us, just to sharpen your skills with where we're at with the zoning ordinance, what changes we've made, and what the criteria is that you're required to review, and keeping your personal interests out of your actions and leaning on the regulations when making decisions.
All right, Eric Hikus.
I just wanted to thank Daniel Ainsley for his comments in our training session on TIF money. And he said that there really isn't a ton of tools to use for economic development. And he's right. I mean, there's limited. But we talked about one today that we sometimes don't appreciate, and that's good old community block development grant money. And that's a viable option. I know that in South Dakota we've actually sent federal money back to the Washington and didn't use it here in our state. We're all allocated. Each area is allocated a certain amount of that funding, and we don't always consider it. So I noticed in a couple of our items we talked about it. So let's not forget about that one in the future. So.
All right, Vince.
Oh, and Vicki, I as far as Grandview goes, it's a great school, and and I'm glad your grandchild goes there. But I just want to make one more comment about that street, only because I've talked to quite a few people on that street. It's from Fairmont to the school. That's in question, not the whole street. So and I mean also the Grandview that goes north from there as well. So thank you for the block grant and the information and the TIF suggestion. So appreciate it.
All right, Mike Quasney.
Thank you. I guess I'll ask the question on the map that shows the city that was brought up, and I believe we need to go over here. Where do we go to get this map?
Civic segment of street, and then pulling the data for that street and then interpreting the data that comes with it. So it's just, even for me, it's a bit cumbersome sometime. And we didn't want to put it out there because then people come in and say, well, my street's got a 27 and this street's got a 30. How come they're getting done first, and stuff like that. So it's literally like a school grade score, 0 to 100. And if everybody thinks their street is the worst, I could probably give you a list of 82 that are worse than that. But And, but it is a very interesting thing, and if you would like, and Mr. Chair, if you'd like, I'd have my engineer come to a planning commission and put on a very short demonstration of that, if that's something that would be beneficial.
Vicki?
Perhaps we could do that at our training session.
Okay, I'll do that too. She's my boss, I'll do what she tells me to do. So anyway, but no, I appreciate it, and Vince, I'll look at those specific street segments, and you're saying from Fairmont, remind me, Grandview from Fairmont North, right?
No, it's the other way around. It's
Oh.
from Fairmont South to the school itself.
All right, I wrote it the wrong way, I apologize.
And I walk that street every third day or so,
Okay.
that's why I get accosted. I get asked questions.
I wrote north here, so it's Fairmont South, okay, thank you.
All right, anything else? Maybe a motion to adjourn for those ready to roll? Okay, Karen made the motion to adjourn, Vince seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
I don't disagree with your no vote.
Yeah.
But the only thing I kept thinking of is that capture fund is still gonna probably give them the 500,
Yeah.
the 300,000, whatever it is.
That's
I mean, that's up to them.
yeah, it is. I just don't want to get
Yeah.
into a thing where it's like, okay, we want another Taco John's over here.
I think it sets